That's a spicy hot take from me, but I am a designer.
Hello and welcome to the EuroWhat, episode 279, dropping on September 23rd, 2025. We are a pair of Americans trying to make sense of the Eurovision Song Contest. I'm Mike McComb, and in this episode, my co-host Ben Smith will be speaking with graphic designer Justin Ladia about Eurovision's branding redesign. In our last episode on the main feed, we were getting caught up on Eurovision news, and we thought it would be a good idea to get a professional opinion on the recently announced logo redesign. We thought it would be a quick 5 to 10 minute segment, but the conversation Ben had with our guest Justin Ladia was so good that we weren't able to edit it down without losing some of that good stuff. I wasn't able to be part of the conversation, which is a shame because it's quite delightful. We have a link in the show description to the announcement post about the redesign. It includes images of the new logos and fonts, which may be helpful when Ben and Justin start getting into the details of the design. We also have links to Justin's website and Blue Sky if you'd like to check out his design work or say hello. All right, that's enough intro. Here's Ben and Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Oh my god, hi. Oh my Ben, it's so nice to hear from you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, living. We're sliving, as Paris Hilton says. Is Paris Hilton relevant to Eurovision? I don't know. I'm sliving anyway.
So, I wanted to chat with you because you are a graphic designer who has done rebrandy stuff in the past.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's right.
It's relevant to current Eurovision news, and why not chat with somebody who at least on some level has professionally thought about this sort of thing?
I honestly, yeah, I'm into talking about that because like every time I'm on your podcast, I'm talking about things I don't know about.
Like, you have been a real trooper on the show in terms of, hey, Justin, here are 5 songs that may or may not be to your taste. That like it is more than time that we come and chat to you about things that are relevant to your existence as a person.
That's right, you are in my backyard now. I mean, we're sharing a backyard because it's like, you know, it's in the intersection between design and Eurovision, but glad to talk about something like that.
So Eurovision has been around for a while, like we are going into the 70th contest. In your experience, why does a company either sort of want to or need to do an overhaul or a rebrand of their design identity?
The most common reasons for a rebrand usually has to do with a change in their strategic direction. So like a change in values, like they want to switch their focus to a different, let's say demographic or a different sort of group of people altogether. There's also reasons for changing the way that they want to be seen by people, like the way that they want people to think of them. Sometimes it's just really the brand is super old and it doesn't really work anymore on a technical level. It doesn't work for the current digital age and the platforms that exist currently, and so there is a need to change that. But in the case of Eurovision, where they're hitting a specific decade of their lifespan, I would say that is a pretty legitimate reason to do a rebrand. Like 7 years is a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say like a lot of companies that I've had the pleasure of designing for has had, you know, when they reach like 10 or 20, they often are like, oh, okay, maybe we should think about doing a rebrand. Sometimes they don't do it because they believe that the current brand works and they just want to do a temporary like logo for that specific year and that's it. Essentially, what it boils down to is that there is a significant change that they'd like to signal to the public. And that's basically the turning point for when C-suites are like, we should rebrand. And so that's how it happens.
What does a new rebrand do if it's successful?
So it really depends. I hate saying that. It depends because that's such a non-answer. But there is really the goals are for that rebrand are going to be up to the people internally, really. Like externally, it's a different story. We can talk about like whether something is ugly or doesn't really fit the perceived aura of the organization, you know, if it doesn't fit in that way, or if people think it's boring, that's a whole different story. Like the metrics for success really is internal. So it's like, did we get more people talking about it? Great. That's great. Do people know more about the brand now that we've rebranded? Is the refresh, was that enough to generate a discussion or generate more eyes on us? Like, did it give us more notoriety, or did it achieve our sales goals? Like, is the demographic that we're going after more attentive now to our brand, and so on and so forth. So the success really, and it's hard to, like, as a graphic designer, to really try to do something very visual and try to make that and translate that into something that will succeed in such a, like, a lofty way. After a while, you get to kind of understand how people respond to certain things and how people interpret the vibe that you're trying to achieve in the design. So it's very touch and go. It's kind of like pie in the sky lofty stuff after a while. After you do some design stuff, you don't really know how it's going to be perceived from the outside. You have an idea of how it's going to be perceived by the audience, but the true measure of success really is whether we achieve the strategic goals for the company internally.
Before we talk about the Eurovision logo specifically, as someone who is kind of an outsider, at least compared to someone like myself who pays too much attention to this sort of thing, thinking about quote unquote brand values, like what do you think of as like the Eurovision brand values?
I think there's some clues given away by, like, some of the marketing material that's already out there prior to the rebrand. Like, United by Music is a particularly good tagline that really shows what they're trying to achieve for the organization, for their entire kind of shtick, or their vibe, their aura. So I think in terms of values, I think they're looking for, you know, something that is joyous, very unifying, that is pretty lighthearted but also very positive. The hashtag good vibes only kind of deal at the moment is what I would like to, like, that honestly, like that's how it seems like from the outside. It's like, you know, they want it to be a fun, joyful contest that is just, you know, just fun and lighthearted. Like, really, that's it. Yeah.
So the previous version of the Eurovision logo dates all the way back to 2004.
Oh my god, yeah. Okay.
And part of what they did with the current logo is, before this, literally every contest was creating their own logo for their Eurovision. So this was, on some level, we are unifying the branding.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not atypical for an organization or like an event to have a standard logo that works for the entire organization, but then for each year have its own brand. That is not out of the ordinary. That's something that you'll see in, like, for TED, like the TED Talks, that has an umbrella brand. And there's a lot of other events that kind of do that. But it makes sense for Eurovision to want to brand the logo for each year. There is a consistency, of course, with from like 2004 onwards, where it was, you have that scripty sort of penmanship type sort of writing, and it's been fairly consistent looking from year to year, despite, you know, some differences. To be honest, though, like 2004, that's like 21 years with the same sort of aesthetic. Well, same-ish aesthetic. There's been updates here and there.
Now that there's like this standard branding, there is the ability to take that and have that be adjusted to like the individual nation. Because like what Switzerland did, they did this essentially like a half tone, but with the shape of the heart, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I do enjoy that.
Also, they mashed this up with a font that they called Eurotime, but that felt very Helvetica to me. Actually, no, it wasn't even Helvetica. It was serifed.
Yeah.
It was like almost like, it was like Times New Roman, but just fancy.
There's like I don't know. The secondary font that goes with the brand is like, you know, there's a certain vibe to it that, like, for the 2025 version, looks a lot like Gotham, which is basically a font that's been overused for in the 2020s onwards. But I see in 2004 they used like it a little too on the nose, the Euro style font, which is like from the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, like the 2004, like the secondary font, just like for whatever reason, just immediately reads to me as 2004.
Yeah, it's very driving down the Autobahn type font. Like it's those like stickers that you get on European cars with like the 2-letter. Oh, maybe this is too niche for your audience, but there's a certain history with the original secondary font for Eurovision that was most apparent in 2004. But obviously the values, the general vibe of like fonts have changed over the last 20 years. So going to something more sans serif, something more humanist, meaning like, you know, something that's like really easy and kind of geometric looking in a way is not surprising.
Mm-hmm.
But the current with the proposed rebrand, I say proposed still because I don't know what's going to happen to it. But the current rebrand that we're experiencing is quite funky. So
let's talk about that, because like the first piece of information of news that we got about the 2026 Eurovision season was, hey, we've redone the logo. We've added some stuff because it's the 70th, ends in a 0, pew pew pew. And then this other secondary font that I have no clue if that's what Austria is bringing to the party, if this is just sort of the standby in-house United by Music. We're still doing that.
Yeah. I will say that as individual pieces, it makes sense to me. Like, there's a certain vibe that's being shown by each of these pieces. I think when I was looking into it, the heart being a 0, most obvious thing you can do for like a 70-year thing, especially since the heart was such a huge thing for the brand for the last however many years. And so it's the most obvious thing you can do. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that I would also probably think of doing that, like doing the heart as a 0. Amazing, great. They call it the chameleon heart. We don't know what that means yet. I'd like to kind of withhold judgment on how it's being implemented because they seem to have plans for it. So it might actually be really cool what they'll do with it.
With the 70, the one thing I'm concerned about is just sort of like, remember how in like the 2000s we got really excited because you could make New Year's glasses with the 2 O's?
Yeah.
And now we are 25 years later. Still trying to figure out how do we do 2026? Do we stick the 2 on the bridge of the nose and then you have the O and the 6? We're just
it gets awkward.
I love this for 70. I want to know what, like, are we going to also recognize 71, or are we just going to save this for when we have like a 0?
I guess we'll have to see, but I'm going to think that they're not going to stick to the heart as a 0. The heart will stick around because obviously it's part of the logo.
Yeah, it's part of the logo, and like it's clearly become enough of like a part of the Eurovision brand that like we need to have the V of Eurovision be a heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that makes sense. So I think they're using this opportunity to kind of show how that heart is going to work. And this is like the year to do it. Like it ends in a 0. The heart is going to be a big part of it. It makes sense to do it this way. I don't think they're going to do it next year. I don't think the designers are going to want to make the heart as prominent as it is now for like 71, or make it a number-based sort of vibe next year or the years after until we get to 80. Because then at 80 it'll be like heart, like the 8 holes in the 8 are going to be like hearts, and then you have another heart. Whatever. Like that's likely going to happen. But the way it is now, I think, you know, it's a test ground for how the quote-unquote chameleon heart is going to play out for this particular rebrand, I guess. But the other thing, too, that I wanted to bring up is that and I think people have noticed this, and you notice it, like, the United by Music tagline does not quite vibe or kind of mesh that well with the logo being underneath. It's a little bit of a confusing choice.
Of these 3 things that we are currently staring at, I like all of them individually, but like once they're all on the same cafeteria tray, they don't, like, they're not necessarily like, because like the thing I like about the way that they have framed the United by Music, and then in subsequent imagery, because a couple days later we did get the host city announcement, and I'm just gonna we're gonna add like yet another font into the mix. I think we have.
Oh my god, yeah, okay, this I didn't see yet.
I didn't realize until like just now that like, oh wow, we put United by Music in like a 3rd font at this point.
Yeah, so I think what's happening here is you have a bunch of different sort of goals kind of coming to a head, where you have the desire to show the new brand for the 70th year of Eurovision. Then you have the desire for Vienna to show that this is Vienna's year. And so Vienna is doing its own thing as well. So I don't know if this this humanist typeface with the circular sort of decorative like points at the end of the letters are a thing that's going to happen after this year, or if this is just a Vienna thing.
Yeah, well, and like with this one, like the thing I like about that font is that for me it kind of harkens back to almost like a 70s aesthetic, and just sort of like one of the big Eurovision moments is 1974 is ABBA.
Yeah, and we love ABBA. Yeah, 100%.
Let me try and grab the logo from that one.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, because it's not even like the same font, but for whatever reason, it makes me think of.
No, I get it. I absolutely get it. Like, it does have that. The 70s, especially for graphic design, had this whole Swiss vibe, like the Swiss look, which is very geometric, very simple. Like, think of the VHS tape covers, but like slightly older. Like, not as 80s as the VHS tape covers, but like very much drawn to geometry and like straighter lines and, you know, very simple shapes.
There's something that feels weirdly heritage.
Yes.
About the curliness of this font, right, despite it being that way. But yeah, just like looking at how, particularly on the Vienna announcement, where they are using that same font underneath the new updated Eurovision Song Contest logo. Mm-hmm. Like when it's real small, it looks just kind of weird, especially like the curl on that V.
Yeah, it looks there is a risk of that, like the accessibility wise. It is quite a risky choice, so I would assume that they have well, I would hope, I would say, don't want to assume this, but I would hope that they have like a certain threshold for like when swashy type letters can be used, because there are fonts, of course, that you can turn that sort of curl off or on. Maybe at a certain size it's turned off. I don't see an example really where they have that same font for like smaller applications, but like, yeah, it's an interesting choice because on its own, it's great. I like it, but all of design is like has to do with how it behaves with other things, right? So I am confused by the choice of using United by Music as in the script, in that really, really like funky, you know, girl boss script, and then you have the Eurovision Song Contest like official logo in that what was, I think, inspired by the 70s, and having that be it's another vibe. Like typically the logos should work in most contexts, but like because it's the font itself is really funky and really strong, not necessarily strong in a good way, but just, you know, it has a strength to its visual value. It kind of fights with the rest of it. But I will say, I just want to make this clear, I don't hate the logo. I mean, there's some things about it that is kind of interesting. Like some of the choices they make is interesting, like the hierarchy of the word Eurovision on top of Song Contest. Typically in the past Eurovisions, you had the word Song Contest much smaller. Maybe there is a reason for them to become closer in size. Maybe there is some sort of metric or whatever that they're like, oh, actually people need to know more that's a song contest, so we should make Song Contest bigger or whatever. But I think balance wise it's a little off.
The interplay between the size of Eurovision and Song Contest feels a little weird to me, and like part of that could be it's new. We're afraid of change.
Yes, yeah.
The other thing that sort of jumps out to me is just sort of the interesting choices with this font about what letters in Eurovision Song Contest are using what I perceive as a lowercase letter and what I perceive as an uppercase letter.
Yes. Now, that gets into some pretty subjective territory because, like, sometimes, like, the people like the lowercase e. Some people like the uppercase e. Clearly, what they were trying to do is make everything look consistent on one line. So, like, there probably is, like, a good reason. There's a chunkiness to a lowercase e being bigger versus the more spacious, there's more white space in an uppercase E letter. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and like just looking at the previous version of the logo, like, yeah, that the uppercase E is bigger. The lowercase e fits a little bit more on the scale of the URO.
Yeah. And so, like, with the previous Eurovision logos, the one thing that this logo, the rebrand logo does is the strokes of each letter is fairly, like, it's a lot more consistent, let's say. Like versus the old ones where it was more, let's say, natural in regards to how it would appear if you were to write it by hand. So this one is definitely more technical in terms of typography. This is more typographical, whereas the old ones were a lot more scripty, more handwritten. But again, the choice is interesting. They still decided to put the flag in the heart. That doesn't seem to be going away, and that's fine. I'm not really a big fan of the logo type being in white and the flag having white. It just when you put the two together, it just kind of seems awkward.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's just sort of a 1-2 of the Austrian flag having that big white stripe in the middle.
Yeah.
But then also, the image that we are on top of, there is a dark background, so we can't have, like, a black version of this. We have to use a white one so that it is visible and readable.
Yeah, and I can understand why, like I'm looking at the same image. Like, I can understand now really why you would have Song Contest bigger, because then it allows for the host city or host country and like the year to kind of fit in there more consistently. Like, I would assume like year after year that the specific treatment of where the host country and the year where that sits in relation to the main logo, that's going to likely be more consistent. Whereas I think in previous years you didn't really have that same consistency, so you couldn't like put them next to each other and make it look like it's like from the same company, I guess. But like that really wasn't a huge problem anyway. It is nicer that they're trying to make that more consistent. If my assumptions are correct, if they are trying to do that, then I think it's nice that they're trying to do that. But I don't think it's like necessarily the most important detail. It's like a nice to have, that the cleanliness is nice. I like that. But it is really early days really for this brand. The strength of a brand comes from how it relates to the rest of the elements, and we've only really seen very few pieces, and we don't know how it's actually going to work once it's an implementation, when the teasers or the marketing content comes out. There's a lot of time still for this brand to percolate.
Given that this is an event from year to year, and just knowing that it feels like we just found out we're going to be in Vienna next year, it still feels like very early days of, are these fonts coming from whoever is handling the branding over on Team Austria, or is this just EBU being like, hey, here is what we feel are unified design elements for announcing it's the 70th contest. Here's what we're doing for this. It's the, we're in Vienna. Here's a font.
Yeah.
Have fun. And just like, again, like the internet is being the internet. This is the first piece of news we have, and we are all sort of reacting to, like, I feel like the commentary has been very much in the sort of graphic design is my passion.
Okay.
Nature.
Yeah, this is kind of a, oh my God. Okay. How do I say this without being super mean? I think there is when it comes to... Okay, let me first get into the psychology of it. I think there is a certain level of apprehension for change. People don't like change, especially for things that they've loved for years. Like when it comes to like organizations, especially like things like Eurovision, their identity kind of is tied to the consumer's identity. Like consumer's identity is kind of tied to their identity. Let's just say that. Like anything you do is tied to a brand. And if you decide to patronize a brand, in the way that the way the things are in a society,
in our current moment where like the nature of fandom has very much become about the brands that you consume and purchase and conspicuously show.
Yeah, in exactly that in that specific sense, when a brand changes its identity, there probably is a sort of a pain that is felt because like the identity changed, therefore you have to change. Like that might be the correlation. This isn't the only example. Recently also, Eurovision is not the most recent example of a rebrand being so
being like culture war adjacent.
Yeah, like the Cracker Barrel was the thing that's happening at the same time as this. Cracker Barrel's logo was changed, and the audience there is also having a moment being like, why did you change it? It was perfectly fine. And the thing that I hear the most when it comes to rebrands is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this isn't a thing that people are necessarily fixing. It's like, this is a thing that they're updating for specific reasons that may not be publicly available to everybody. Like the Cracker Barrel thing, like I get why they would do that. The old logo is nice in terms of its vintageness, and I'm sure people feel a certain way about the sort of the illustration of that. But it, in regards to like using it on a website or using it on like a social media page or whatever, or the way it behaves, like the way that the cleanliness of that sort of yellow in the background works a lot better. But
exactly.
Yeah.
But like if I as a brand want to communicate that I'm not just old-fashioned or something that'll do if there's nothing else on this highway off-ramp.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because just thinking about brand associations, like with Cracker Barrel, there is a certain demographic they are probably trying to court where the mental picture that one gets of a Cracker Barrel is going to keep you away, and they are trying to say, no, you are welcome here.
Yeah.
We are contemporary.
Exactly.
We are up to date. Hello, fellow kids.
Exactly. And like the brand that we had from 2020, was it 2004, you said? 2004? Yeah, and up to now, worked for the millennial era. Absolutely did. It was fine. And I would guess that the C-suites or whoever is dealing with the marketing over there is like, we just need to update this for Gen Z and Gen Alpha sort of demographic. It makes sense. Like, I get it. Like, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like that sort of group is now looking more towards maximalism as a vibe, because we just came out of a period where, I mean, we still are somewhat in that period of where everything is minimal and like they're paring it down and becomes kind of generic looking. So I understand the reaction against that and why maybe Eurovision would do it in this way, because it's a little bit more maximalist. There's still a funk to it. You don't necessarily want to be generic, especially for a song contest that is like kind of built on the stage of camp. So it's like it's campy. It's like it's campy logo. It works.
Well, yeah, they haven't changed the overall sort of like word mark for Eurovision that much.
No, exactly. But the reactions we're getting online is wildly dramatic from some people, where they're like, and it's for me, there is a certain level of NIMBYism to it, where it's like, not in my backyard. I love change for other people. I just don't love change for me. Like, I don't want to see it in my sort of what I love or in my vicinity. But they didn't really give it a chance yet, because it hasn't really, there's not a whole lot of stuff out with the current brand. And a brand is not just the logo. A brand is the entirety, the package of like, how colors and fonts and photos kind of work all together, the motion graphics, website, all that sort of stuff. The logo is a tiny part, and I think a lot of the criticism is on the logo, because people don't understand, like, the brand is like an entirely encompassing thing. And so the reactions I'm seeing online are just like, oh, look, the new Eurovision brand came out and they're mocking it by like using word art, and that's like it is really insulting as a designer to have the thing that you worked hard on, and where you had to negotiate and like talk to a lot of the client organization, where they have their opinions and they're shaping the way things are being designed, where there's careful consideration for like how things strategically look and how that would translate, whereas being compared to word art, it's like, oh my god, like there's probably a reason for it. You gotta give it a chance,
And also, if this is making it to your screen as like a social media announcement, this is not the first time it's being seen. This has been viewed and approved by multiple levels of people.
And the other thing about rebrands in general too is that the current brands work, the older brands have worked because it was given like 20 years to exist. Like, if we go another 20 years and there's another rebrand for Eurovision, I'm almost certain that you will get the same reaction to that logo. Because if a logo is bad, but it lives for a long time, but the product itself, or whatever it is that it's representing, is loved, like, universally, if they may improve that bad logo, people are going to be like, I liked the bad logo because it represented everything I liked about the product itself. It isn't really a commentary on the logo. It's really a commentary on, like, a fear of a change in the way the product is going to run or the way it's going to be perceived. So, yeah, that there is a certain level of, like, it's not really about the design. It's really a fear of change and like a reaction to that change.
Okay, so as a treat, I'm going to send you one of the older logos that when they were standardizing the logo, we're considering as this could be the one, y'all.
For this year? What do you mean?
No. This is back in 2004 when they were like, okay, no, we're gonna have one logo for Eurovision. What should it be? One of the ones that was in consideration was, what if we just used the Eurovision 2000 logo?
Oh my God.
So this is the Eurovision Song Contest Stockholm 2000 logo.
Oh. Oh no. Actually, you know what? Okay. The lips are one thing, and I see I can appreciate it from a camp standpoint. Like, it is high camp. It's very drag, and I love that. Like, honestly, it's bad. It's a bad logo because it's like it prioritizes the lips over the product itself. Like the lips aren't really not, no pun intended, they're not really saying anything. They're just like it's shocking, and that's good.
The font that it's paired with is very hello, it is the new millennium.
Exactly. And that
have you heard of the internet?
That is the part that I'm focusing on more, because it's very of its time. Like I saw a Reddit post as I was looking at the Eurovision Song Contest, like rebrand stuff, and the reactions that we're getting. There was a Reddit post is like, this is how I would do it, and it is kind of the worst thing I've seen. Like, people are coming out of the woodwork being like, I could do a much better job. It's like, that whole thing with art be like, my 2-year-old could do this, but it's them doing it.
Just that, or the people who are very confident that they could take on Serena Williams at tennis.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy. I like that.
There is a beautiful Twitter post.
Yeah.
Of someone extending the metaphor and just being like, she serves and the ball immediately passes through their head, killing them.
Yeah, exactly. And so people who are attempting to kind of improve on the rebrand, it's like, that isn't any better, and they're so confident about it too. It's like, I do a much better job of the rebrand. I'm like, girl, the only reason why you think that works is because you weren't working directly with the client, and like 50% of design at least is negotiating with the client about making something that works technically well and it looks good. But because design is so subjective, the client's gonna like mess it up in some way, for good or for bad. They have reasons for wanting to provide feedback and like what feedback they give. But the exercise of doing design outside of the client designer relationship is kind of just like, it's finger painting to me. It's like, you're not dealing with that relationship. You don't know exactly what the Eurovision Song Contest, what their North Star was, what they wanted to see, what their sort of strategy was. And so to just like simply be like, here's my design, without that consideration, without like thinking about that specifically, is just, it's a fun creative exercise in the nicest way, if I can put it in the nicest way. But in the most honest way for me, it's child's play. Don't do it. It is disrespectful. I hate to see it. It's a waste of time. But I mean, that's a spicy hot take from me, but I am a designer. So yeah. So I hope that your listeners don't go to my website and be like, actually, your logos suck. You are not the person to be talking about this. But I mean, I get paid to do it. So there, and I've done those talks with clients and going through the feedback loop and like the revision stuff, and design is a lot more complicated than people think it is. Just because it's easy to access visually, it's easy to kind of ingest and digest. People have this sense that it's not as complicated as it is, and there's complexity to it. There's complexity to design. It's just very easy to pick up because visually, because like you're using your senses, and that's why we get such dramatic responses to rebrand, because it's like I said earlier, it's an aversion to change. It is a change of identity that they tie to themselves, and they don't necessarily want to be represented by that, sure, whatever. And it's also like a sort of naivete to the values of design and how design works in the corporate world, which, Eurovision is an organization, and so organizations have things they need to do to run. Eurovision probably had certain things that they needed to do, and we're seeing the result of that in the logo and in the branding, as awkward as it is right now, because it's basically infant, baby, toddler age right now.
It's the first new piece of information we have. Like, this is like, we're all very excited. We are all having feelings at this thing that we all have feelings about.
And then people will forget about it after the thing comes out.
Montenegro is going to be like, hello, Monta's song is this date. And then we're just going to focus all our energies at that.
Yeah. Like, we'll have another Malta moment where people are just like, oh my God, they said the C word. And, you know, everyone will forget about it. Like, nobody actually talks about the logo or the brand, really, until a change happens. In the years that you've had me on the podcast and the years that we've talked about Eurovision, neither of you have talked about the logo up until now. So, like, it's having its moment because it's the only thing we have.
Exactly. Well, Justin, thank you for chatting with me about this and the whole idea of why a redesign. This has been very informative.
Oh, I hope so. And I hope I've provided some level of insight into the design process.
That's going to do it for this episode of the EuroWhat. Thanks for listening. The EuroWhat podcast is hosted by Ben Smith and Mike McComb. You can find our full archive of episodes on our website at EuroWhat.com. You can also find us on Blue Sky at EuroWhat. Next time on the EuroWhat, we start developing our taxonomy on a recent phenomenon at the Eurovision Song Contest: weird little dudes.